So when and why would you take these? So let's be clear. This isn't just about vanity. It's not just about like looking good with your shirt off, although that's a nice side effect typically of, being muscular and looking healthy. It's about quality of life. Hello and welcome to the Weaponized Body Podcast. As always, my name is Dr. Ryan Hewitt, and I'm here today to talk to you about all the latest and greatest in recovery, performance, and health when it comes to your metabolic movement and mindset. Today is a topic that I'm super excited to talk about. It dovetails on our conversation we had last week about the Wolverine protocol, the growth or the peptides, BPC 157, TB 500 that are so popular for recovering from injury, etc. Those cannot be in a conversation without what I'm going to talk about today, which are growth hormone optimizing peptides. You'll see the growth hormone discussion is essential when it comes to optimal healing. It is a big part of how your body recovers from everything, from the day that was. It's what's known as your anti-aging hormone. When most people think of growth hormone, they immediately think of bodybuilders and people that abuse HGH, giving themselves synthetic injections. But here's the truth: growth hormone is something that's already naturally produced in your body. So it plays a massive role in how you look, how you feel, how you perform. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about, in plain English, what this hormone is, how it works in your body, how it declines with age, and how peptides are being known to assist in the optimization process and helping slow that decline of growth hormone over time. And what the science says about, safety, efficacy, etc. By the end of the episode, you'll see why growth hormone is often called the fountain of youth and how you're going to be able to optimize it naturally without things that are going to wreck your health. As always, we are leading with health as our number one. Keep in mind, this is also, as a disclaimer, not medical advice. Make sure you're consulting your doctor if you have any concerns, health concerns you're trying to resolve. This is for information and education purposes only. So let's get into it. What is growth hormone? So I'm going to start with the basics. Growth hormone is also known as GH for short. It's produced by what's called your pituitary gland. It's a tiny pea-sized gland, which is at the base of your brain. And every night while you are sleeping, especially during that deep sleep cycle, your pituitary pulses out growth hormone. It's not one of those hormones that comes out in trickles during the day, like estrogen or testosterone. Instead, it comes in spikes. And the rhythm is critical for how it works, which is why optimizing sleep is essential for having great growth hormone pulses. So what does this hormone do? Well, let's just give you a quick hit list. Number one, it stimulates muscle growth and repair. So really important for recovery from your training. It helps burn fat for energy. So if you're somebody who is looking to burn body fat, growth hormone plays a massive role in your body's ability to break down the body fat in your body and use it for fuel. Number three, it plays a role in collagen production. So skin, joints, tendons. So it's really important for healing and preventing injury. Number four, it supports recovery after your workouts or from injury. And number five, it impacts even your mood, your sleep quality, and of course, your brain health. So this thing is like a super hormone for your body. Now, here's the problem. Like almost every other hormone in your body, it does start to decline with age. It tends to peak in your teens and early 20s. That's why, people who are in their 20s, they recover so fast and they're just like indestructible. Then around age 30, it starts to drop about 10 to 15% per decade. Now, by the time you're 50, your natural growth hormone output might be like half of what it was in your 20s. That's when people typically tend to start noticing slower recovery. You start to get more stubborn belly fat. Your skin starts to sag and wrinkle. Your energy lowers, etc. That's not just getting older. So that's actually your ability to recover starts to decline, especially if you're not doing things that are ensuring that you get optimal growth hormone production. So number two, let's jump into the physiology of it. So growth hormone, and then another hormone called IGF-1. So let's get into it. So how it works is growth hormone doesn't actually act alone. When your pituitary releases growth hormone from your brain, it travels through your bloodstream and tells your liver to produce something called insulin-like growth factor 1. All right. So you can think of growth hormone like the signal, and IGF-1 carries out the orders to your muscles, to your bones, your tissues, etc. So IGF-1 is what helps actually build muscle. Because what it does is it stimulates something called protein synthesis. IGF-1 helps strengthen your bones. This actually is what assists with the mineralizing of your bone density. And IGF-1 helps with fat metabolism. So it's making it easier for you to use stored fat for energy. So it's one of the best overall markers for longevity and vitality. This is why it's in all of my weaponized body hormone panels. So I measure this on everybody. Now, growth hormone and IGF-1 work in what's known as a feedback loop. So your hypothalamus, which is right next to your pituitary, releases a signal called growth hormone releasing hormone. So try to follow along here. So your hypothalamus is the structure. Okay, it's one side is your pituitary, one side is your hypothalamus, and what it does, it releases a signal called growth hormone releasing hormone, and it tells the pituitary to release growth hormone. Okay, so it's kind of like a chain. Growth hormone goes to the liver, and the liver makes IGF-1. And then IGF-1 goes back to tell the hypothalamus and the pituitary, okay, we've got enough, so it's time to back off. So that's the natural physiology. And when we test people's blood work, we don't usually test growth hormone directly because remember, it comes in short pulses and disappears. Instead, what I like to test is the IGF-1 because that's the best window on how much growth hormone activity you've got going on in your body. All right. Now, optimizing growth hormone. How are we able to do this? Well, number one, before you start looking into how to optimize with all these fancy tools like peptides and supplements and all this stuff, number one, you must prioritize sleep. Every weaponized body guy I work with, that is one of the number one things we do. It's the number one most underrated lifestyle factor that affects your recovery, performance, health, your ability to build muscle, etc. If you don't have natural circadian type of sleep and you don't go through the typical light REM and deep sleep cycles, what you're doing is you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. You're preventing your body from going through the natural cycles that are actually required in order for you to release the specific endogenous hormones for you to get the desired result. So in other words, getting to bed by 10 p.m. max, okay, sleeping in a dark, cool room, trying to get totally uninterrupted sleep. If you want uninterrupted sleep, you're going to want to drink most of your water intake, I would say before 6 or 7 p.m. to prevent, waking up at night and going to the bathroom. And also you want to make sure you're not eating at least 2 hours before bed. What you don't want to do is screw up your body's ability to go through the natural circadian rhythms of serotonin to melatonin, dropping into, sleepiness and going to bed, and then going through those natural cycles through the night before you wake, preferably at least 7 hours later. going through those natural cycles is really, really important in order to get optimized growth hormone production. Number two is you absolutely have to be eating enough protein to stimulate protein synthesis to make sure you're recovering and you're synergizing the effects of growth hormone in order to help your body heal and recover, etc. And then there's a whole other whack of physiology that goes behind that and why it's important for natural growth hormone production. But number three is you want to make sure you're getting the training stimulus as well to signal your body that it needs recovery. In other words, you better be doing resistance type of training. So lifting weights, right? You want to be lifting heavy. You want to be lifting often. This goes for every single human being. There's no exception. Everybody needs to be doing some sort of resistance type of exercise in order to signal your body's need for, optimal hormone production. So how, you're doing all the right stuff, but let's say your growth hormone is lagging, okay, due to, whatever it is, environmental or chemical or physical stressors that you've endured over time. So there are things out there like peptides. We talked about BPC. We talked about TB500. These are naturally occurring peptides in the body. There's also naturally occurring peptides that can help stimulate more growth hormone production. Now, remember, peptides are short chains of amino acids that act like signals in the body. Okay. Think of them like little text messages telling your body what to do. So when it comes to growth hormone peptides, they don't replace growth hormone. Okay. A lot of people mistake that. They're like, you're not taking growth hormone by doing peptides that increase the growth hormone signal. So instead, they stimulate your own pituitary to release more of your natural growth hormone. Okay. So you're working with your physiology, not against it, which is why I'm a big proponent of these. So try to follow along here. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. Essentially, there are two main classes of peptides that we use for growth hormone optimization. All right. Number one is a growth hormone releasing hormone analog. Okay. So the hypothalamus that makes that peptide called growth hormone releasing, well, it's a hormone. Okay. The hypothalamus that makes growth hormone releasing hormone, there are peptide signals that increase that hormone to be produced. Okay. So these peptides, they mimic the natural release of this hormone from the hypothalamus. There's really, I'll talk about three of the most popular ones that I've experience with. Number one is synergize. Okay, this is a short acting, often dosed at night, and it mimics your natural growth hormone pulse during your sleep. All right, so what it does, it just amplifies your signal a little bit in order for you to get more growth hormone production. I have experience with this peptide. I have many clients who have experience with this peptide. The results are typically very good, very little side effect to none, and it's a very mild peptide. We could say you're not going to get, tremendous changes, but people do notice a difference as far as their recovery as well as their ability to burn fat and build strength. Number two is a peptide called CJC 1295. And this comes in two different forms, one with DAC and one without DAC. So with DAC, it has a much longer half-life, so it keeps growth hormone elevated longer. Without DAC, it's a shorter acting and often combined with other peptides. Okay. And we'll talk about some of the peptides that are in combo out there. The third one of a growth hormone releasing hormone analog is one called tesamorelin. I prefer this one for those of you that are looking to burn visceral fat. In other words, this one's really good at helping reduce belly fat. It's a newer option with stronger clinical research, actually, particularly reducing visceral fat and improving the body composition. So this peptide was actually originally developed for HIV-associated lipodystrophy. So it's now widely used for off-label for fat loss to improve actually brain health and even cardiovascular benefits. This one tends to be a bit more expensive. It's just a little bit more effective also. I do have experience with this one also. Definitely a more noticeable effect than, say, the sermorelin. Now, number two, and by the way, these sermorelins, the CJCs and the tesamorelins, those are typically dosed at night before bed um, to introduce the stimulus for you to produce more growth hormone during your sleep cycle. Okay. Now, here's the second category of growth hormone analogs, and that's these are known as growth hormone releasing peptides. Okay. So these work on what's called the ghrelin receptor to stimulate growth hormone release. You might recognize ghrelin as the hunger hormone. Okay. That's why this one's kind of interesting, which is why growth hormone, it not only is released during times of deep sleep, but also of fasting. Okay. So one that you may have heard of in this category is called ipamorelin or ipamorelin. This one's my favorite out of the growth hormone releasing peptides. It's a very clean peptide. It doesn't spike hunger too severely, and it doesn't tend to raise cortisol or other undesirable hormones like prolactin. So this one you'll often see in combination with, say, a growth hormone releasing hormone peptide like tesamorelin or CJC. These work nice in combination because they both work on different mechanisms to stimulate growth hormone. There's others out there that you may have heard of, GHRP2, GHRP6. These have been around longer than the ipamorelins. They're very powerful, but they come with more side effects like, hunger, as well as hormone imbalances, which is why I don't typically recommend these. So here's the magic with these. When you combine the GHRH analogs with the GHRPs, so in other words, both categories of peptides, you get synergy, right? So it basically, you're hitting two different pathways. So you'll get a more natural growth hormone release closer to what your body used to produce. And keep in mind that in a lot of cases, this is something you don't want to just use these forever. These are, great to be cycled in and out because you are overstimulating natural processes, but you don't want to create exhaustion. Okay, much like in other cases when you're trying to stimulate natural physiology with things like peptides, you don't want to continue to overstimulate. You want to resensitize, take a break, and reintroduce later. So when and why would you take these? So let's be clear. This isn't just about vanity. It's not just about like looking good with your shirt off, although that's a nice side effect typically of being muscular and looking healthy. It's about quality of life, right? So people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond are starting to notice slower recovery. So growth hormone is being pulsed anyway. And by the way, you want to make sure you're maximizing your strength training, your sleep, as well as minimizing stress and eating a protein-based whole food diet. But yes, so you're basically just amplifying what your body already is designed to do. So if you're particularly looking to lose fat, if you're trying to cut or lean out, you can actually use these not just in the evening, but in the morning. And they work, very nice with that type of you could say goal. Okay. So remember what I said earlier, growth hormone's hard to measure directly. So labs, we look at a biomarker called IGF-1. So if your IGF-1 is low, so typically like if you're under the age of 40 and it's under 200, that's a pretty low IGF-1. So you're looking for, something that's over the 200 mark. So the serum marker we track before and after the peptide protocols. And what we're looking for is a slight increase, ideally. It tells us if what you're doing is actually working, right? So that's, the strongest blood work indicator of, your growth hormone production. There's other things that we want to check other than IGF-1 though. Really, to, I guess, check out your growth hormone status. So things like fasting blood sugar, as well as A1C factor in with your growth hormone efficiency also, because growth hormone interacts with insulin and blood sugar as well. Your lipids play a big factor in growth hormone because growth hormone helps regulate fat metabolism. And don't forget the bigger hormone picture too, like testosterone, DHEA, your thyroid hormone. All of these work together. And it's like a symphony. If one is off, the others are going to suffer as well. Which is why I'm a big proponent to make sure that we're balancing hormones first before we start looking at things like peptide assistance. Okay, we're going to talk about dosing guidelines. I get a lot of questions about these. Again, this is not medical advice. This is just educational purposes only, essentially. With synergize, you're going to want to do anywhere between, so this is, obviously dependent on the person, anywhere between 100 to 500 mcgs, and you're doing this subcutaneously at night. CJC, anywhere between 100 to 300 micrograms, and that one's often paired with the ipamorelin, right? Ipamorelin's pretty similar, anywhere between 100 to 300 mcgs. Typically before bed. Some people have done these like multiple times in a day, first thing in the morning and before bed. And the tesamorelin, that one's typically in a higher dose, between 1 to 2 milligrams daily. That's what's been the dosage that's been most studied. In the context of visceral fat reduction and IGF-1 boosting, you want to take these before bed. And if they do tend to disrupt, if they are disrupting your sleep in any way, you'll take them first thing in the morning. So most people, so again, listen to this, most people run them between 3 to 6 months and then reassess with labs. So we always reassess, between 3 to 6 months. And of course, do this under medical guidance. I'm a strong advocate of doing this with guidance, not just to do it yourself. Now, I guess before we wrap up, I'll go over a couple of the other interesting facts about these. So unlike synthetic human growth hormone, peptides don't shut down your own growth hormone production, right? So they actually just stimulate more of it. That's a big difference, right? It's not replacing growth hormone. It's actually signaling naturally, I guess, in a way, more growth hormone production. Peptides can improve not just muscle and fat composition, but also don't forget about this hormone being an anti-aging hormone as well. So it improves skin elasticity, hair quality, and even like the depths of sleep that you're getting. So as far as like sleeping deeper. Now, it's oral peptides. I get questions about this, injectable versus oral. Injectable seems to be far more effective as far as absorption and the specific signals that you're looking to replicate. With the oral peptides, they're typically less effective than the subcutaneous injections, only because they have to go through the digestive system. If you're doing sublinguals, I think they have now, you're going to get less breakdown from gastric juices. But again, it's got to go through lymphatic systems, process through different systems before you get the desirable effect. So that's why the subcutaneous injectables tend to be more effective and efficient. And then lastly, I'll just remind you that these are tools. They only work if you're also training, eating, a protein-based whole food diet, sleeping properly, and managing your stress. So I can't say that enough times because I think a lot of us are guilty of thinking we can just hit the easy button. There's a lot of folks out there that are looking for the magic injection, the magic pill, the magic program, etc. And I always stress the basics. So the basics and consistency, that's where the magic really lies, which is why it's so, I guess, not often practiced. You don't see it often, and it's more rare because it is, I guess, the human trait of consistency is one of the I guess the rarest things you could find. So let's bring this home here. Growth hormone and IGF-1 are some of the most powerful drivers of youth, recovery, performance for your body. So as we age, they do decline, but peptides do give us a way to nudge the system back online. Like to say, it helps juice the signal. And it's not about chasing youth, but it's about weaponizing your health so you can recover faster, have better brain function, think clearer, show up stronger in every area of your life. And if you're curious about where your IGF-1 levels stand, because this is never going to be on your general physical blood panel, If you're still relying on knowing how healthy you are under the hood metabolically with your general physical, you are missing out on a huge bunch of biomarkers that you need to be measuring. I've done podcasts on this. You probably heard others speak on it. The average general physical, you're getting about 19 biomarkers. So with my weaponized body panels, we're getting, anywhere between 40 to 100, depending on the amount of things you want to look at. And I can't emphasize this enough. To get your blood work done, especially if you're over the age of 35, stop the guesswork. If you don't know your numbers and you can't make intelligent decisions on what to do, like, hey, are peptides right for me? Should I be messing with these things? Or are there things that I'm, clearly not practicing with my lifestyle that I could be optimizing first? So I can't overemphasize that enough. And I thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you're getting a ton of value out of these. So if you find value in this episode, please share it with somebody who you think needs to hear it. And, please subscribe if you can. Also, the subscribing helps continue to drive up the podcast as far as the popularity. And I'm going to keep doing these if you guys keep listening. So as always, keep your body strong, your mind strong, and your health weaponized. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week.